Yeah, participants can write an email to us and we will forward your questions to Dr. Narasimha. Let's move on to our second session of the day. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. M. Sridhar Acharyalu. Teaching being the first love, Dr. M. Sridhar Acharyalu joined the Academia School of Law, Bennett University, after adjudicating thousands of second appeals under Right to Information Act 2005 as Central Information Commissioner from 22nd November 2013 to 21st November 2018. He was sworn in as Central Information Commissioner in 2013, 5 years term, equivalent in rank to Election Commission, Supreme Court judge. He gave several landmark judgments on RTI like every patient has a right to his or her medical records from public or private hospital. Educational qualification is not personal information. The RBI has a duty to disclose the names of willful defaulters. A voter has to be informed before his vote is deleted. He has designed various courses such as PG Diploma in Media Law, PG Diploma in ADR, Women Rights, etc. Various special courses such as Media Law, Election Law, Agricultural Law, Corporate Criminal Liability. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Daman Johar, for your elaborate introduction. You gave more information to people about me. Fine.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
Yeah. Then I'm really very privileged to be associated with the eminent professor, Mr. Narasimha Reddy. I'm very happy to hear him, and he has given a fantastic background, how the labor security measures emerged all over the world, how the international phenomena, the liberalization, so-called liberalization, has affected a dent on the rights of labor and how we are facing a situation today. And he has almost touched the background, complete background of new labor code. Really, it's worth adding as a great background to our understanding of the labor code. First of all, I'd like to tell you, in fact, Professor Narasimha Reddy was talking about the nomenclature and the new lexicology that is being introduced by the rulers as on today. First of all, I'd like to tell you, it is not labor code, it is industrial code. I'm not saying the name is labor code only, but if you look at the content and examine what exactly it is not labor code, it is industrial code, business code, or something else. If you want to give a different name, you can give. But definitely it's not a labor code. It deals with industrial activity in relation with labor. That is what is the right description if you analyze the content of this code. The second point, very important point to be noted is, it is, as has been rightly pointed out by Professor Narasimha Reddy Garu, it is a departure from labor welfare, security, and it is a sure, it has a sure focus only on the ease of doing business. See, industry, production, business, economy is the total focus of this code of codes, labor codes. Then, very interestingly, in the process of consolidation of codes, National Labor Commissions and various other labor bodies and trade unions, they wanted consolidation of labor laws. In fact, it's a useless demand in my view. The reason is, if 44 labor enactments are in separate shape, what is the problem? You want one law with 44 chapters, each describing a different labor right. What is the difference between these two? So demand for consolidation of labor code to put all the 44 legislations together is a bookshelf demand. That means you want to have one book instead of having 44 books, that's all. It doesn't serve any more purpose. And the government, in the name of consolidation of 44 legislations of central government and several other legislations ruling in various state governments. It said that it has a great concern for labor reform, and it brought out these labor codes, which are total. I can tell you without any exaggeration. I'm not exaggerating. It is a total denial of labor welfare, security measures, rights, collective bargaining rights of people, and their constitutional right of association. All these rights are at serious stake with reference to labor who are registered formal labor. And somebody was asking about informal labor. If the condition of formal labor is this, you can imagine the conditions of informal labor. It is as bad or as it was in 2020 when a lockdown was all of a sudden announced. Millions of people were walking for thousands of miles to reach their home or to reach place of piece of living, a piece of land where they can live with peace. That was their aim, and they were walking. Until then, the government of India doesn't know that a kind of informal labor is existing in this country in the name of migrant labor. And Professor was absolutely right when he's talked about non-implementation of those three important legislations, which are expected to cover and provide security to informal labor. They have totally not, it was totally not implemented. Interstate Migration of Labor Act and Construction Labor Act and some other labor legislations. Instead, one law was very actively being implemented. You will be surprising to know. That is Contract Labor 1970. The Contract Labor 1970 is beginning of ending of labor rights in this country. But people did not recognize it. They did not imagine the serious impact that the Contract Labor Act 1970 is going to cause to this country. The Supreme Court also did not come to the rescue of workers, and they were approving and incrementally adding some more executive powers to this enactment, through this enactment, when they were adjudicating the matters of labor rights. So the Contract Labor Act 1970 is today most powerful labor legislation. And even a little safeguards that were left by Contract Labor Act 1970 are being withdrawn with this codification. This is the one aspect of it. And let me also tell you the greatness of two enactments, past enactments. Industrial Disputes Act, which Professor has rightly referred to. Industrial Disputes Act is such a comprehensive labor legislation. It was really doing well. It was really doing well being implemented. And then labor have some hopes of retaining their rights through Industrial Disputes Act. This act provided for the promotion of industrial peace. People do not understand it. It is not very easy to go ahead with the strike. Not very easy. And it is not easy to close down or lock down. Industrial Disputes Act really protected the relations between the industry and the labor. And it has a very specific role for the government of state, because labor is a concurrent subject. And the state have equal importance. The state have more stakes. Center is expected to make a national policy of regulation and economy related issues, that's all. But it is supposed to be left to the state to protect the rights of their labor because of their peculiar circumstances and interesting work cultures that you have in those areas. Labor legislation is a local legislation. It cannot be a national policy, national legislation. But okay, Industrial Disputes Act 1952. It's the Industrial Disputes Act is a very, very not 1952. It is a very important enactment that was very useful for whole of the country. Every state was benefited by it. It has it has a negotiation, conciliation processes in settling the disputes between the industry and workers. These conciliation processes were really proved useful until dishonesty, corruption has infiltrated into these enactments, and the labor officers have become slightly disinterested because of various vested interests, and the corporate private investments and their management strategies, they seriously affected the functioning of the labor welfare officers. Everywhere, in every district, you will find a labor welfare office, you will find a conciliation board, you will find a labor code, and then you will have wonderful activities, where the workers have assurance of their rights, and then if there is any problem, they can go to conciliation officer. Most probably, 90% of the disputes were settled at the conciliation board itself. But those who spilled over would have reached national labor courts, and then labor awards were passed. Here, I would like to add one note of my experience. When I was working as Information Commissioner in Delhi, the labor issues came before me. You might be surprising what kind of labor issues I can deal with as a commissioner. Very interesting. That was a petition for information about when the labor award given to him will be implemented. This is the question. That means there is a dispute between labor and management. It went to conciliation board. They did not conciliate. It went to escalated to labor court. Labor court awarded that you get 90,000 rupees, 1,20,000, something, some amount, and it is supposed to be paid by the industry. Industry litigates, industry challenges it over High Court, and from High Court it goes to Supreme Court, and a poor labor is expected to fight the giants, the rich giants, up to Supreme Court, and people have fought. I know most journalists in Hyderabad who fought their cruel managements. I'm sorry for using this expression. Inhuman, at least I can say, inhuman managements who did not bother to give a little more money to them. Though they were earning, they're not bankrupt. They're making huge profits, but still they refuse to pay their due. And further, they had to fight. And it took 25 to 30 years to 40 years to get labor award passed by the labor court, approved by the Supreme Court. And then at that point of time, you tell me what will happen if labor award is not implemented by the industry. What should happen? If big stakeholders are involved, they will press upon the contempt of court, and they'll drag the corporate manager to imprisonment threat. But a small industrial worker, a small industry somewhere, or a medium scale industry somewhere, or a big industry somewhere, how do they get their labor awards implemented? Not possible. So they used to come to me asking for the plight of the status of implementation of labor award. That shows how implementation of these labor enactments was so poor. So this is one aspect. Law is very good. Implementation is very, very difficult. Now, if you have a law, even if there is a difficulty in implementation, there is a hope and scope for an ordinary worker to raise an issue and fight for his rights. And I'd like to tell you, most of the labor do not fight for their rights. The example I can draw again is from working journalists. Most 90% of working journalists do not fight for their rights. They write for others, they write about rights of others, but they do not fight for their own rights. The reason is individual fight against an organization is difficult, and there is a delay in dispensation of justice. And this sole reason of delay in dispensation of justice is affecting the economy of the country. If you cannot resolve a dispute in a reasonable amount of time, how do you expect industries to come? This is a very valid question. So for that, what you have to do is you have to reform your judiciary, not reform the labor laws. The solution lies somewhere else. Reform is expected to be done somewhere else. So you have a commercial court, commercial bench, or you have a different stream of commercial courts where we can deliver quick justice in commercial disputes. Or you encourage alternative dispute resolution processes like mediation, conciliation, and arbitration, and that is being done. Instead of doing that, showing it as an obstacle or a hurdle, as a hassle in economic progress, showing the delay in dispensation of justice as an impediment to your industrial progress, you're coming to reform, so-called reform of labor laws. This is the pathetic background of this. Then I'd like to give you the constitutional position. In fact, Professor Narasimha has rightly talked about various legislations, labor legislations, and their historical background and their status in protecting the labor law. I'd like to give one point. See, the Bhopal tragedy, you might remember. Bhopal tragedy occurred because Factories Inspector did not function properly. They did not perform their duties properly, and even when Factories Inspector questioned the Bofors, that Union Carbide company, about their disaster management practices, their information systems about the possible leakage of poisonous gases, and their plan for evacuation of the people in case of emergency, they are supposed to be informed in advance, and they should also tell what are the solutions, where the problem could be resolved, where is it they have to move. All that information should have been given in advance, but because of political influence and being a big foreign business concern, they were above the small officers of Factory Act in Bhopal district. So that was the position where the politician and the corporate money, they joined together and they became a big force. How do you expect a small departmental officer like Factories Inspector will deliver the goods? So this was the situation, and you know how the disaster, it has really a disaster for the Indian economy, and it also indicates that without proper regulation, if you invite private investment, it would be very, very serious. It will be affecting very seriously not only the economy but also the health of the people, and it will cause serious environmental issues. We did not learn any lesson from this, and we have come to this level. Now coming to the constitutional position. The directive principles of state policy read with some of the fundamental rights which Professor Reddy quoted just now. I don't want to repeat the same quotation. So child rights, child cannot be employed in a dangerous or a hazardous industry. And then you have special rights for women, and then you have special rights for disability related, the affected people. And then you have gone to the directive principles of state policy, where right to work has been incorporated into the right to life, Article 21. The umbrella of Article 21 is a very, very important umbrella, and it has such a wide scope of including several bundle of rights as per the very imaginative, creative, and protective interpretation by the Supreme Court. We have expanded the Article 21 scope, adding directive principles of state policy, like right to work and right to dignified work and right to better wage, like right to living wage, right to equality of payment for the work, and right to several other labor security measures, and right to give the workers a share in the management. It's a fantastic point in which nobody is talking about today. We are accusing and abusing the philosophy, saying that it is socialistic philosophy, communist philosophy, and it is not suitable for this point of time. All these things are being talked about. So the directive principles of state policies are directives. They are not recommendations. They are directives. And they are fundamental duties of the state. Please go to the language of Article 37, 39. You will find that though it is not enforceable in a court of law, you can't go to court of law and ask for a writ being issued to Government of India to grant some labor welfare legislation or to give some security of labor against unnoticed discharge of or dismissal or retrenchment. No, you can't ask for that. But the government, which is working for the welfare of the people, is expected to take care of these aspects. And Article 21 read with a duty, that's what Article 31 says is, though it is not enforceable, it shall be kept in mind that it shall be the duty of the state, underline the language, duty of the state when you make legislation, these principles have to be implemented. And this is violated when labor code is made in 2019 and 2020. Very unfortunate. 4 codes were made. One code was passed in 2019, and then another code was passed. Another 3 codes were passed in 2020 September. Do you know how they are passed? Very interesting. You know, the laws for agriculture is farmers. 3 farmers legislations. I would like to tell you, they are not farmers legislation. They are businessmen who do business in farming legislation. So the farmers legislation, 3 bills were passed. 3 bills were introduced in the parliament. The parliament, Lok Sabha passed it without much debate. Went to Rajya Sabha and people were insisting on counting of the votes, and the deputy speaker did not allow counting of votes, and he said, I saw it, no saw it, I saw it, majority passed it. If you really count the numbers, it would have failed, but deputy chairman did not give that opportunity, and protesting against this, the legislators walked out. When legislators walked out, do you know what the ruling party, Treasury bench did? Okay, this is a wonderful time to pass 3 codes, labor codes. 3 labor codes were passed in the absence of opposition. So there was no opposition. Fine. These labor, whether they were consulting, I already told you, the labor is a concurrent subject. Unless you consult the state governments and all other stakeholders, tripartite consultation, that means states, industries, and the trade unions. Unless you consult these 3 persons, you cannot come to a conclusion on what should be the the code of labor rights in the new environment. I understand. If you think that there are hitches somewhere here and there, you can really reform them. There's absolutely no ban on that. You're supposed to do that. Then there was no consultation or inadequate consultation. Then there was consultation of trade unions for drafting rules. Recently, it happened in January. Rules, the Ministry of Labor, Labor Welfare, wonderful name, no? Labor Welfare has called for consultation, and 10 great trade unions, 10 popular trade unions have boycotted it, and the consultation goes ahead without any hitch. And then look at the transparency. The bills were kept on the website for consultation. There were thousands of objections raised, thousands of objections, and none of them have been incorporated. They're simply brushed aside. And government is expected to come out with the voluntary disclosure of information as to what objections came, how the objections were incorporated, or taken into account for correction of draft provisions, and why they have been rejected. You are supposed to say that, and no, nothing like that. It simply went ahead, and they have passed they have approved in the cabinet, and they were passed. So the rules are in such a situation, and the law is passed in such an atmosphere of absence of transparency, lack of consultation, and no question of talking to any stakeholders. So it is totally in favor of businessmen, industrialists, private investment, and foreign investment. The whole goal and focus of the labor code, so-called labor code, is how to attract more investment and how to make ease of doing business, and how remove the court's intervention in labor legislation. This is the point. And you will be wondered to know that there used to be one labor court in every district, and today all of them will be removed. There is no question of labor courts. There will be one industrial tribunal in the state headquarters, and if you can't solve your problem with the management in a conciliation process, you will have to straight away go to the industrial court, and there, of course, you can you can exercise your what is that, judicial review right. I'm being diverted by the questions. I mean, I should not read that. Okay, so the industrial court tribunal will decide, and on that you can go to the high courts for a writ petition, and then also Supreme Court. And who will go? Even if industrial tribunal gives a favorable order to a labor worker, the corporation will have enough power, financial power, and they have a legal branch, and they have great lawyers, who studied in national law schools. They will use them, and they will go to upper courts also. We do not know what will happen to that. So this is this situation today. And now coming to the benefits of employers under a new labor code. I don't have much time to explain each section, but I'll give you briefly the one benefit I gave you. They need not worry about labor codes, and their projection is their protection is totally reduced. And threshold for entrenchment, closure or layoff without requiring government approval is raised from 100 to 300 workers. No, it is not a benefit for worker. An industry which is having 300 workers, lots of industries are there with 300, less than 300 workers. They can retrench and they can close and they can lay off. They need not take any permission from the government. Ease of doing business is your facility to discharge employees, dismiss employees, close the business, and then lay off without government permission. The retrench, go ahead, go on doing retrenchment. I was talking about inspectors, factory inspectors in the context of Bhopal tragedy, how he could have prevented, but he could not. Inspector is now called, inspector cum facilitator. That means his job of inspection is reduced, and he will be facilitating the process. The Inspector Raj, we talk on the license Raj, Inspector Raj. So regulation, we hate regulation now. We hate inspectors now. So regulation Raj is gone and Inspector Raj is now removed. Random web-based inspection system to be introduced instead. Random web-based inspection. Okay. Licenses, registrations to be issued online and in a stipulated time period. We have no problem. Do that. Licenses, registration, that is the area where you are supposed to ease of doing business should be increased. Then compounding in various offenses, compounding. All those offenses which were defined as crimes, as crimes, have been reduced and made compounding offenses. Do you know what is the meaning of compounding offenses?
Sridhar, you are muted. You are muted. Please unmute it. You are muted.
So we can't hear you.
Please.
So I don't know how I got muted. Somebody
Yes,
is
sir.
working. Somebody is actively working, perhaps. He doesn't want to hear me. How much time I have, Daman?
So we'll wind up at 5:15. We'll take up a couple of questions in last 10 minutes.
So I still have some more time now? 20
Yes,
minutes?
sir. Yes, sir.
15 minutes at least?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I'll quickly go ahead. License and the compounding of business, bargaining rights. One of the most worrying factor of this labor code, so-called labor code, is the recognition for trade union is dependent upon 51% of the support trade union has among the workers. 51%. Earlier it was 75% proposed. Now it becomes 51%. Earlier, what is the thing? Majority. It is not 51%. You know how the elections happen in our country? We recently have seen 5 states going for polls. Those who get more votes than other candidates will be declared as elected. He need not get 51%. If you insist that 51% is the mark of, is the yardstick for elections, most of these governments will fall, including the central government. They will never have any, authority to rule this country. But whereas this government, which was elected based on the first past the post system, wanted trade unions to be recognized only when they have 51% of support from the workers. This is one way of keeping the trade unions out of negotiation process. It's a major breach of collective bargaining power, and it also violates the constitutional right of forming associations. No, they are not stopping you from forming associations, but they don't recognize you. When they don't recognize you, what is the use of forming an association? So in
Professor
effect, it is
Sridhar, I'm sorry, 1 second. We'll have to wind up at 5. I am so sorry. So we'll have
okay.
15 minutes followed by question answers.
So how much time I have?
Another 15 minutes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I said. No? I have 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
then I'll wind up within 15 minutes. Don't worry. I'm giving you the salient features. Then the one more. This is one thing. Collective bargaining has been diluted. Totally, it was. It is now depends on 51% support of the trade union. I think no trade union in this country has 51% support, and this is one way of taking away the bargaining power. And then they have introduced two kinds of workers, a gig worker and platform worker. I think these names are known to those who are in the field, but let me explain. The gig worker has to work according to mandate of some contractor, and he doesn't have any link with the employer and employee relationship. He doesn't, whether he's working or not also is not the concern of the management. That is gig worker. Then he's defined as a person who earns out of activities which fall outside of the employer and employee relationship. This is a wonderful definition you will find. Then there is another person called platform worker, a person who undertakes work through online platforms for providing services outside the employer-employee relationship is considered platform worker. Then very interesting definition I'd like to give you is, who is the worker? The definition of worker is a very important point, definition of worker decides the enforceability of labor laws. Let me tell you, Bangalore Waterworks case is a landmark case in labor laws. In this case, a worker working in public sector water supply agency, water supply department of Bangalore, was considered as worker, and that board, water supply board, was considered as industry, and the security measures of labor rights have been extended to those employees also. But today, worker is one who will not draw more than 18,000 rupees, a fantastic definition. And now all the rights that you are providing in the new code will not be applicable to worker who is making 18,000 rupees plus 1 rupee. He will not get it. And another very interesting definition of worker is, you will not consider a person who is doing a supervisory type of job as a worker. Irrespective of the salary he is drawing, if he is supervising, he is not a worker. And if he is drawing 18,000, he will be a worker. And anybody who is drawing more than that is not a worker. So at the roots, they were being taken away from the protective cover of labor welfare legislation, though welfare is left in a very, very symbolic manner in your industrial code, which is called labor code. It's a very problematic. Then I'll give you one more point. All the 44 legislations, they lose their enforceability. Do you know that some state government have suspended all the labor laws, including Working Journalists Act, which journalists do not know. All the laws were suspended in 4 or 5 states. One state started doing it, another state started. All Hindi belt states have suspended the labor laws, and somehow the South Indian states did not suspend them. Okay, now they need not suspend any labor law now, because all those labor laws were suspended and replaced by this Code on Wages 2019, Industrial Relations Code 2020, Social Security 2020, and then Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020, which were enacted in September 2020. Now, I have too many points, but let me give you only very, very interesting, important components. 8 hour day, I think 8 plus 8 plus 8, right? Have you heard of this? 8 plus 8 plus 8, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, and 8 hours of availability of time for recreation, education, and so on, social activities. This is the division of a day, 24 hours, which was demanded by the workers all over the world. And there were agitations, movements, violent movements rather, In one of the major labor rallies, there was a infiltrated sabotage that happened where somebody threw a bomb. And because of this, there was a police firing. Police died and people also died. And then a few labor leaders were held responsible for this and they were hanged. They were hanged. And after that, struggle continued. And because of the continuous demand for the right, it was granted. And that was the reason for May Day. It happened 155 years ago, 1856. It happened, and May Day is celebrated for its importance of 8-hour work. And today, the code facilitates managers to take any number of hours beyond 8 hours, up to 12 hours from the workers. This is the facilitation. And this May Day that's the reason why the May Day is, I wrote an article. May Day is, there is nothing to celebrate this May Day. Okay, April 1st was supposed to be the starting point of implementation of this law. But because the rules could not be drafted by states and rules could not be completely drafted by the center, it was deferred. And I thought they will be starting it on May Day. Luckily, they did not do. And they are waiting for a probable another day for launching these codes. Then they are for improving the business, and there are various trade unions supposed, including the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, BMS, which is affiliate of BJP, that also questioned the IR code bill. They have criticized it totally. And then industry naturally has welcomed it. Then annual meeting of Indian Labour Conference, the highest tripartite body, that is called Indian Labour Conference. It was not convened for the last 5 years. It was not consulted at all. And for migrant labor, you can forget about them. Then safety of women. Now, do you know what is the new law? Law says that you can employ women before 6 a.m. and beyond 7 p.m. also with their consent. That is the only welfare that they have given a right to, freedom to communicate their consent. That is the welfare of women. Then consent, they are compelled by compelling circumstances of unemployment. Okay, contract labor legalized. I'll just give you one example because I have 2 more minutes to go to 12 more minutes to go. When I was working in Central Information Commission, there were 3 types of drivers. We were asking for drivers because the 11 commissioners were working, 10 commissioners with 1 chief information commissioner. They need cars and they need drivers. One set of drivers were full-time employees appointed regularly, and they draw around 60 to 70,000 rupees salary depending on their seniority. They are the real workers according to law. Then you have contract labor appointed under Contract Labor Act 1970. They will never be regularized, though there are provisions for regularization in Contract Labor Act 1970. They are never pressed. And then they will be getting salaries up to 20 to 25,000 rupees. And then third category of the drivers, they are appointed on outsourcing basis. That means some of the peripheral activities of companies and offices can be outsourced to a contractor who will furnish some labor, some human resources. That means human beings. There will be a list of workers with him, and they will be deployed to you. And he will take the money, and they will give money they will pay the salary to the people. So this fellow will not get more than 13,000 rupees, which is minimum wages, which is according to Minimum Wages Act, minimum wage. The condition is he should not be renewed. His contract will not be renewed because he will be working only for 1 year. This is the problem. 3 kinds of drivers. Equality, Article 14 is totally violated. Equal amount of money for equal amount of work, gone. So this is the situation. And this is encouraged by the code. Code says, at least there was one limitation on outsourcing employment. That is, don't appoint outsourcing employees in core area of your functioning. Important, substantive part of your work, don't employ them. But now those limitations were removed totally. You can employ anybody You can employ these persons, anybody under outsourcing in any category of the work. That is the, and you can appoint any number of gig workers. You can appoint any number of platform employees, and you can go ahead with outsourcing employees, and you can also have your contract employment. So this is the safety trade union acts. They go. There is no question of trade unions and what is proposed as the bargaining power of the trade union that will remain. And there are some more interesting contracts. It is called fixed term contracts, FTCs. FTCs will be having same rights as a permanent worker under this code, but they can be removed. They can be, they don't have any other right. After 5 years or fixed term, they should silently walk out, and they should not say. They have no other right with the manager. Then the standing orders in Chapter 4 of the Industrial Disputes Act, whereby earlier establishments employment, that was amended. I already told you 300. It went raised. It will the benchmark has rose to has been taken up to 300 persons, and then strike is made difficult, very difficult, unless you give 60 days notice. And unless you are a recognized union having 51% support, you will not have a right to give a notice of strike. And I told you labor codes are abolished. In place, it also places a 3 years limitation for the resolution of disputes within 3 years. There's nothing wrong in putting this kind of mechanism. Then there'll be no compensation on retrenchment. If establishments are having lesser than 50 workers, and they are seasonal employment, there is no compensation on retrenchment. Closure is also made easy. Give 60 days notice and close the, and then government will have complete power. It has taken over the power to exempt the establishments. What a wonderful thing. It will give a notification, say, I am exempting this industry from the application of code. Code will not apply to some of the industries. Now, what more you want? Then this is how the welfare has been given farewell. It's a farewell to welfare legislation. The government is totally provided industry with facility of closing down the industry whenever they want. And these are some of the aspects I thought I should put before you about. It is very, very elaborate code, very difficult to give you all the salient features, but I try to do better. Thank you very much for your kind patience.
Thank you, Dr. Sridhar. We'll take few questions from the audience. So the first question is from Durga K. Are non-standard atypical employees being discriminated? What are the new values needed to be embedded in labor laws of countries today?
Equality. Follow Article 14. But we are not ready to do that. I told you there are 3 kinds of drivers. Where is the value for the work? The dignity of labor. Where is the living wage? So we have to ask for it. And that is what is taken away by the, where I was talking about only 3 categories of employees, giving an example. But under labor code, the new labor code, gig workers, platform workers, FTC workers, and other workers, where is the contract labor, outsourced labor, formal labor, informal labor. So you have a multiplicity of categories of workers, unreasonably classified, unequally placed, and you have to ask for implementation of Article 14. Equality is the fundamental right. Equality is the theme of preamble of Constitution, and we have totally forgotten about it. And there is one more very interesting point I'd like to tell you, the questioner. There is one portal which is called Shram Suvidha portal. This Shram Suvidha portal talks about the labor security to the informal sector workers, and they have to download this app and they have to get linked to this Shram Suvidha portal. Fantastic. But if you don't have Aadhaar card, you will not be linked. So there are certain conditions, you will be out of that portal, and this is how we are making new equations, new values, and new laws. Without amending the Constitution, we are violating it.
Dr. Next question is from Dr. J.K. Gulati. Political class, business lobby, bureaucratic structure, criminal factor, police cell being hand in glove is there for all to see. Plight of poor, deprived, at beggar's end is to go wherein backdrop of this public display of unhealthy nexus. Professor Sridhar, your concrete reply on this issue is expected to give a solution to this predicament of have not class or society which is giving its all to have.
See, it is your opinion, first of all, and opinion, giving a concrete answer to your opinion is difficult. And I agree with you. That is the typical answer I can tell you. Your opinion is absolutely right. And then the answer, possible answer lies in the consciousness levels of the people. If you think that labor code is problem of labor, and if you don't get into the situation and try to demand for equality, I think when it comes to you, nobody will come to your rescue. So the answer is all people, all the sections of people should think about what is happening to this country, especially in the backdrop of what you have stated. It's a very perhaps pathetic statement that state of affairs is stated in your statement.
Next question is from Kaiser. Sir, what is your suggestion on the problems that laborers are facing in this pandemic, and how should the state government help them out?
First of all, you first recognize that there are workers, formal workers and informal workers. At least give them information where a hospital bed is available, where the oxygen is available, where the ventilator linked bed is you are ready to offer. Where are information is first important thing, and at what cost they are going to get. And you use your ESI funds, thousands of crores, thousands of lakhs of crores of rupees is lying with you. One of the positive development of ESI law. You have huge amounts of money with you, and PM CARES Fund has a fantastic amount with you. Come on, inform them and help them.
Question again from Dr. J.K. Gulati. He wants you to speak about compounding of offenses in court. I believe that part he couldn't listen to it. Could you repeat that, sir?
See, the earlier legislation was having certain penalties, criminal penalties for breach of the labor law. That means prosecution. Now there is no prosecution. It is compoundable. Do you know what is compoundable? I commit an offense. I don't go to jail. I will enter into a compromise with a person. I'll pay some money and keep off. This is compoundability. So all the industrial violations are not going to be considered as crimes. They are some kind of civil wrongs. Pay some money and get out of it. Very easy now. Ease of doing business.
So this one is from V. Sudarshan. Are you of the view that our labor laws are neutral or one-sided? That is, safeguard the employer?
See, my answer to this is this. It is a biased question, number one. Number two, you pay the cost of machine, you don't negotiate. You pay GST without negotiation. You pay your managing director without negotiation or negotiation for increase of the salary. And you pay all those costs which are important for your industry, but you don't pay for human labor as it should be paid. Now, when I talk about rights of human labor, human right and human value, what kind of a balancing you are thinking about? What kind of a bias you are talking about? In my view, law should support the weak. Law should fight on behalf of weak against the strong. And if law is also supporting the strong and fights against weak, am I biased or are you biased?
So this one is from Dr. Mansoor. Do governments have rights to restrain or stop the trade unions? Explain. The same happens between Telangana government versus RTC unions. Please comment.
It will happen now in every state because of labor code. Trade unions will be finished away. There are absolutely no trade unions at all. 51% support. Tell me, so which party, which trade union will get 51%? Bharatiya Mazdoor Kisan, Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, and then on the other hand, you'll have other associations. Every trade union has affiliation to a political party. So everybody will have 16, 20, 30, 40, but not more than 51. So finished trade union. Where is your trade union, brother? I'll tell you one point. If there is a law, you can talk about its implementation. You can ask for it and fight for it. If there is no law, nothing. And that's what is being done by labor code. The law is removed and courts are also removed. Be happy.
So this question is from Lavanya J. Is there any legislation for teachers? Because our services are very important to the society, but we are always neglected. This pandemic situation is affecting us badly.
True. I totally agree with you. But the problem is, you don't have a union, and you don't have a recognition as a trade union unless you have 51% support to your union among your teachers. Especially private teachers are absolutely not united. Even the same school teachers are not united. So unless you put up a united demand for a union, and unless you ask for your rights, it is very difficult for you to gain your rights. Your position is, I totally agree with you. I have all respect for teachers. If I'm here today talking some words to you, which are understandable, it is because of my teachers. I salute all the teachers, but pathetic situation, teachers have no rights.
The question is from Dr. Ruby Chatwal. What is the role of trade unions now in the current scenario?
In my view, they should consolidate and become one trade union with 51% at least, and more than that, number one. And then they should start a federation of trade unions, and their federation should first of all oppose these labor codes, and they should demand for redrafting of labor codes without losing their social security rights, their equality rights, and they should fight for it. And people should support it, like you and me.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
I am Professor Badiuddin Ahmed from Mount Azad University. I was quite surprised, Professor Sridhar, the answer he has given for the teachers. Sir, how long this exploitation will continue? The teachers don't have any right for getting exploiting hands of the people. We as a nation makers, when we are becoming scapegoat in the hands of these political leaders, it's really pathetic condition. And a country like India, where you have all people like Sarvapalli Radhakrishna, APJ Abdul Kalam, and really, I was really hurt by you said you cited the teachers, but as a lawmaker, what you should have to have some sort of mechanism to be for the production of teachers, sir.
My suggestion lies in unification of education system. We must have one kind of education which is on par with KVS. There should be KVS schools all over the country, and all teachers should be there in KVS, and their rights should be uniformly protected. You should not have municipal schools and private schools and public schools and private public schools and public private schools. You should not have so many division and various categories of standards of education, CBSE, ICPC, something, what nonsense all this. How many standards of education you want? And yes, unless you reform education system, nationalize the education up to at least 10th class, and then just remove these private schools totally, and have a uniform standard educational system for up to 10th class, the teachers will be benefited with that also. Thank you. My suggestion may not happen, but we have to ask for it. Keep on asking for it.
Thank you so much.
So we will, because we are, hello?
Yes, sir. Dear Professor, very good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Yes, I have one doubt, sir. Here, foreign countries, they are preferring the majority priority they are giving for teachers. Here, the foreigners, they are providing salaries also. The
Correct.
first priority they are providing for teachers. The next priority they are providing for industrial people.
Correct.
But in India, completely it will be reversed.
Correct.
Why? Because they are not at all giving priority for teachers. Here we are producing the number of students. They become a IAS or IPS or engineers or softwares they are making. But here they are showing us as a very discrimination. They are not at all providing good salaries for us, but we are all private employees. They are facing a lot of problems. But how we are going to resolve these kind of problems? But how we can approach to the justification for this, sir?
I think we have transformed ourselves from new labor code to new education policy 2020. Jocularly, but Balasubramaniam Garu, what you said is absolutely right. And my answer, previous answer, stands as an answer to this question also.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any further questions, please drop in an email to us and we would like to forward it or take it on your behalf to Dr. Sridhar. Ladies and gentlemen, all good things come to an end. So is this webinar. On behalf of Sri Savani Institute of Management, I take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks to those who have directly, indirectly contributed in today's webinar.